the relief fund for the victims of the Amphan cyclone and the COVID-19, the initiative by ICHE from IIEST Shipur. You may donate through the options displayed on the screen right now via Google Pay, Phone Pay and UPI, or you have the account details to which you may transfer the particular amount that you feel is fit for the donation. Any amount and contribution is appreciated. If you are not in a position to donate, please share and spread awareness, and thank you for your support. And good evening everyone. Welcome to day 73 of ProBano's live podcast. सबको स्वागत है. Welcome to all the audience members. And firstly, I want to welcome Aditya and Mr. Sen. And of course, आज के जो guests हैं, we have two guests who are the co-founders of Concis. And firstly, we have with us Rohit Chouhan, who is a CEO and co-founder of Concis, and Dev Pathania, who is a COO and also the co-founder of Concis. So firstly, I want to welcome both of you to our podcast. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us, Aman.
Thank you.
Great. So guys, I'll quickly introduce both Rohit and Dev. Devender graduated from IBS Hyderabad with an MBA degree in marketing and finance, after which he went on to work in the business and financial research organizations. He had also co-founded a company before starting Concis. And Rohit is a chartered accountant and has worked with global consulting firms like PwC and EY, and even had his own startup. Together they launched Concis, a platform for discovery and consumption of curated and summarized business content for the C-suite. It presents actionable business insights from research published by top market research firms, business think tanks, corporations, leading experts, subject matter specialists, and thought leaders in short and bite-sized reads, audio and infographics. Their coverage includes technology, financial services, leadership, futurism, growth, and much more. So guys, thank you so much for coming. And without any further ado, firstly, if you can introduce yourself in your own words. Firstly, Rohit, I want to start off with you, please.
Thank you. You've already said almost everything technical about my background. So I would just talk about right now. Today, I'm trying to solve a problem that we've been dealing with personally for quite some time. At Concis, and fitting with the topic that we're going to discuss today, which is about becoming an analyst and what this job really is about. Concis is really a distillation or an amalgam of all my past experiences as an analyst. So that's my quick background.
And Dev, if you can introduce yourself, please.
Okay. Thank you, Samad. First of all, thank you for the great introduction. And as Rohit said, so most of the technical aspects of education have already been fulfilled. So I will just talk about being an analyst, my experience as an analyst. So being an analyst, I would say his job role would differ according to the organization he is in. And my experience, my personal experience is when I worked across teams, the common thread used to be like, if I have to divide, like collating data, making interpretations out of the data, and thirdly, the presentation bit. So these are the bits which I've learned alongside my corporate career. And like you just mentioned about the first startup. So our first startup was also together, Rohit and I, we started Investor Bharat in 2013. That time it was India's first crowdsourced equity research platform. We ran it for like good 1 year. And that was our beginning into the entrepreneurial journey. Then 5 years later, then here is Concis, like Rohit just introduced.
Great, fantastic. Now, before we get to today's topic, if you could, obviously, I did read out a bit about, I did tell everyone about what Concis does. But if you can, tell everyone what you do in your own words. Now, obviously, I was reading, introduction, but in your own words, we want to know what Concis does and how does it help its clients and recipients.
Yes, sure. So Concis at its heart is a place for consumption of intelligent business content. today, when every organization is going through a state of transition, both owing to the evolving tech shift, which all of us call as digital transformation or industry 4.0 or X.0, different words, same thing. One thing that is happening as a result of this transition is the need for enterprises to continuously expose their leaders to insights and ideas to plan for this new world. And that's exactly what Concise is trying to do. We are a curator of authentic business intelligence reports. We do this from multiple sources. This includes business think tanks, organizations like the World Economic Forum, multilateral institutions like IMF or World Bank, consulting firms like EY, PwC, or McKinsey. Or, we also curate a lot of videos and podcast content, where you really have these gems of insights provided by seasoned business leaders. And we try to find those key insights and convert that really large report or that 1 hour video content into a brisk 5 minute read. So that is in a sense what Concise is. It allows you as an end user, if you're a business strategist or you're a CEO or you're a marketer or a sales guy or a technologist, whatever your field, it will give you insights to do your job better and to achieve your business goals. I mean, that really is like summing up the whole of Concise.
And if I just have to add on the value bit, I would say, so both me and Rohit, through our experience working as an analyst and otherwise working on client projects, so information is usually sourced from two fronts, I would say. One is primary, the other is secondary. So many think tanks like World Economic Forum, World Bank, I would say, then consulting firms like McKinsey. So their specialization is in these fields and giving out annual reports and everything. So these are the sources which we as analysts and even the decision makers within the organizations use. And the flaw with the system is these are usually 60, 70, 80 page reports. And if you have to just read one, it requires at least 2 to 5 hours of effort, I would say. Then again, the analysis bit comes a little later. So what we as a value would like to provide our readers is these decision makers already bombarded with a lot of information on internet, just curating those fine sources through our experiences and taking out then further curation on the reports front, then taking out just the key insights and presenting them in, like Rohit just said, 5 minutes short videos, audios and info slides.
Right, and specifically आज के दुनिया में where everybody wants information like this, Google search engines and n number of mediums where you get information, लेकिन people want accurate information that works for them, and nobody I don't know if this is the right way to use it, but either people are too busy or too lazy to go through all that, and certain terabytes and zettabytes of information. So everybody wants information in a quick, in a jiffy, and they want precise information. And I think you guys tapping into that market, that essential in today's day and age, a need of people. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's actually we're living in today in a world of fake news. There's just so much of information being bombarded upon us. It's difficult to know what really is the right thing. So we kind of spend a lot of time to validate what is true and what's not. So we can have some sense of authenticity in the information that is coming to us. Even, and I'm seeing this happening with leading, business platforms. And you see the lines between information and opinion is clearly blurring very quickly. Can we have some better arrangement of this information, especially from the perspective of business, where there are so many resources involved and it's so mission critical for them?
Right. So to get into today's topic, that is, we're going to talk about how to become a business analyst. But before we talk about how to become a business analyst, firstly we'll ask the question, okay, what is business analyst? Because I know what is an analyst, I know what is a business. Okay, but when you put that together, I'm like, okay, I don't know. Do they go like, that is a business? So the question becomes, what is a business analyst, and if you guys can educate us about what is a business analyst and what do you guys do, and what does a business analyst do?
So I do not know about the technical definition per se, but I would like to build upon. So I have seen this role evolve when I first started working as an analyst in 2012-13. Then finally in India, we saw like a mini digital revolution. And when I last left my job in 2017, uh, in those 5 6 years alone, there were a lot of changes. So going on how do I define is, if I just divide the work, business is anything, any operation for profits, I would say. So there is no sector segregation among this. And a role of an analyst is like I just started in the introduction as well, it's divided into, if, through my experience, I can say it's divided into 3 parts, which is like collation of data. Second is interpretation of data. Third is the output, which is the recommendation or what are the final, what was the purpose and the response solution to that, why we started with the project, something on those lines. So any task or work or I would say any person who requires within organization to give inputs based on certain data is a role of business analyst. So this could be a supply chain analyst working in a logistic company. This could be a research analyst working in a research company. This could be a strategy analyst from within a company like Geo. So that would I would say, but the main role is just interpretation, collation, and organization of data and finding those solutions.
Great, thank you. And with that being said, I'll hand it over to Mr. Sen to maybe give us a bit of context onto today's topic, and of course ask his own questions or give his insights on everything. Mr. Sen, over to you.
Thank you, Samad. Good evening. Namaskar. Welcome to the show. And I think we're going to have some fun on the analysis part of things. And I like the way what you guys said is, you curate different articles and capsule them into small, concise sort of information capsules for the C-suite, including the CEO, CXO. That's for that. Because obviously there's so much of information and data flying around in today's digital world, it is quite difficult to make sense of what is sense and what is nonsense. So can you please give some insights into what is sense and what is nonsense about all the information that is out there? So any one of you go first.
Dave, why don't you go for it?
Okay, so this is a question which is plaguing the content industry right now and for the past few years. So all the new regulations you see in the US and India happening around fake news and stricter measures being put on again like Google News and all those curation sources, whether they're right or not. This is the same question which you just asked. So people are trying to develop digital solutions for this, but I would say on the digital front, on the digital bit, the challenge is again, how do you define those algorithms, right? Because every report or every source of data cannot be went back to source and check. So that's where, if I just add the concise element into it, already thought leaders who have a big name in the industry, they have a big team, they're known for a certain kind of work, have authenticity. So depending or giving weightage to these people over what you call unknown resources could be one of the way, not the perfect way. Of course, the sense of data is always when you have multiple perspectives on it. So probably just for the authentication bit, the important stuff, you can focus on that and build in a model way you can get information from these sources weighted via different algorithms and just combining. So probably that could be a solution.
Okay. And when you're curating all this business information or information related to finance or information related to strategy and so on and so forth. Now, obviously, there are some solid stuff out there. And there's a lot of theory out there. There are case studies out there. And there are actual real applications. And there are discourses made by the CEOs or the CFOs or the CMOs or the CXOs, actually. So how do you go about curating this?
I think the first part to this is defining a framework within which you're curating this content. So for us, this is the definition of an industry, B, the definition of a function within that industry that we are trying to first serve. So for us, that definition is financial services at a broader perspective. And within financial services, we're looking at serving, for instance, let's say strategy leaders. So that gives us a good context to now go back, also look at the kind of information that is going around for such individuals. What is really being published, because we're just a curator, so we look at, once we have these keywords defined, it's much easier for us to know what is it that our authentic sources are publishing for these people. Once we have that sense, you have to spend some time building user personas, which is essentially going into profiles of these people, finding such people in this industry. And LinkedIn is a great help there. I spend like a bulk of my time on that platform. It allows me to go through their profiles, understand what their background is, what are they dealing with right now. Also very interesting is the kind of content that they are reading and sharing. That tells me a lot about them. All of this goes into then me and they, just kind of brainstorming, and then going back, researching, and all the sources of information that is available. And then you kind of crisscross, you find trends, you find patterns of things which are repeatedly coming back again and again in the curated content, and that kind of helps you thematize the entire editorial calendar. Like that's like the nuts and bolts piece, part of kind of doing this exercise.
Right. So that's very interesting, because what you're looking for is repeatable trends, and you pick that up and you try to build a story around it. You're getting all the information from the publications that are out there. Now, Gartner and Forresters and all these guys, they're also doing the similar sort of things, and where they put out analytic reports on various sort of players in the market. That's one part of it on the marketing side, especially related to products in the digital world. And I think Gartner does a lot of work on that, as does Forrester. So they're playing in a niche market. So what is your niche market, and how are you sort of differently positioned than a Gartner or a Forrester or one of those guys?
A Gartner and a Forrester today is, an extremely expensive proposition. This is for the rich man business guy, that Fortune 500 man who is not an entrepreneur, who's actually a professional, who's there getting a salary and kind of building his company.
Getting a very fat salary, actually. Yep. Okay.
So it's targeted to a whole different audience, is what I'm trying to say. And in that sense,
my question was slightly different.
It's premium. Yes, go on,
how
please.
Different is your process? The audience is different, we understand, but the curation is.
Yes. So when it comes to organizations like a Gartner or a Forrester, it's very specific. An audience which is very specific. It's very clearly defined services that they give, and it's very in depth. It's not just a top level analysis. It's in depth hand holding in terms of your product development or growth, sales, technology, whatever areas that they cover. When it comes to Concise, the idea is not to replace a Gartner, but to become a source for discovery of Gartner and plus X, plus X, plus X. So it's not just one Gartner and that analyst firm's point of view that is coming around as you do this, but it's, what is a Gartner saying about digital transformation and logistics vis-a-vis, what's an EY talking about this, or a World Economic Forum? What are their analysts? What is their world view of this one specific problem? So now, in an instant, instead of just one organization, one individual, it's like 10 organizations and 15 perspectives. That kind of opens up the graph for me to further think and kind of dig deep into the topic. That's the essential area.
That's quite fascinating, actually. And today we are faced with the issue of getting back to work, and basically that's what's happening now. So there is a lot of literature out there on the net, and you can see it. And there are a lot of stuff out there, but have you guys done anything on getting back to work? And if it's possible, can you share something with the audience at the moment? From whatever you have analyzed of what's happening around the world and where it is headed. It's very difficult subject, uncharted territory, choppy waters, to say the least.
Okay, so we are still working on a report. It's a report by World Economic Forum. It's about, so there are two reports which we have picked up. One is upon the workforce of the future 2030. The second talks about jobs of tomorrow. Uh, I can give you overall insight, but would you guys be interested in looking at the deliverable? We haven't released it out yet, but I can probably show you a sneak peek. So,
Okay, the two of them have given a thumbs up, so I'm outvoted. Go ahead.
so cool. It's better than me like talking about it. If I have something made, I can just show you guys. Just give me a second. I'm just opening.
That's going to
So,
be very interesting.
till the time I'm opening the report, I'll just talk about it. So the basic question which is happening right now among people is like, once automation happens, then how will the workforce like totally cope up with this? We don't have people ready for those changes, those profiles. So, and due to automation, a lot of job loss might happen. So these are the concerns, but the recent surveys are totally not like favoring this point of view. They're more like, once internet happened, there was a talk like a lot of job losses will happen and everything, but the workforce actually managed that. So okay, guys, let me know once you can see my screen. So this is the presentation. It's better than showing the full summary, I would say. That's still under work. So quickly, if I have to just take you through. So for HR or workforce strategy, I would say, what are the key insights share over like these three capabilities are required to guide the workforce and how you need to prepare. So these are divided into different initiatives. Like I can say, one is leadership initiative. Point number 3 and 4 are more on the learning bit, which can be prepared for employees. And point 6 is about new matrices, because of working in a digital environment which require different approaches toward how you measure employee productivity. And lastly, about diversity and inclusion. I'll just quickly take you through the rest of the slides. So post this, we have covered examples from how top companies are leveraging. So I'll just cover one of the initiatives of Unilever. If I take the first one, enhance employee experience via tech. So moving forward in the digital 4.0 world, they have to like be sure all the employees are up the learning curve, can operate in a digital world. So a lot of training programs which require monetary investments from them are being put by the company to just have that workforce ready, or at least a minimum workforce ready till these changes are done. So this is the kind of content which we are covering on those lines, which you said, Mr. Sen.
Well,
So
yeah.
if you have any direct questions, then probably, yeah.
So yeah, it seems that you have really gone around the world picking up companies and organizations as to how they're planning stuff and that is happening, and how they're planning to get back to work. And I think that's very interesting, because when we look at it, and now it is one of the trends, and I want your views on this as analysts and people who actually do this. Is one of the sort of views that's coming out quite clearly now is now earlier, before, commuting to work and planning how you commute to work was all about the time that you needed to go from your home to your place of work and the type of transport that you used to take. So for some people, it could run into 2 hours or 3 hours, and they would go in a local train, Bombay, for example. Some would drive on their own, and they would take a certain route to get to their workplace. That was before COVID. Now, after COVID, that decision is now being driven, and that was driven by time. So you had to reach office at 9 o'clock or whatever. And so you had to start home at 7 o'clock in the morning. So you had to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and like life was a mess. But now that same journey, decision has been taken by health and safety. Which is the healthier way to travel? What is a safe route? And all this. So what have you guys learned about it, and how have you concised all this stuff?
Rohit?
Um, okay, this this will happen. This change is going to happen. But then I see a lot of people, for them this is a great opportunity. Things that they've been always saying. सुबह उठ के करूंगा 5 बजे उठने का मेरे को ऑफिस जाना पड़ता है. If I don't spend that time, preparing myself to do this, I will actually go out there and just work out and just listen to music or pursue a hobby, whatever X. So this is that time. How many people are doing it? I would say that number is definitely going up. I see a lot of people, my friends, posting random content on Instagram. That's very very interesting. One guy, a childhood friend, he's been posting his piano lessons. That's interesting. One guy is cooking, so it's very different and divergent. Yes, at the same time, I had another conversation with a very close friend who works in one of the largest and fastest growing fintech companies in India, and he told me, Rohit, my hours have actually gone up. I am working a lot more. It's a lot more intrusive, which means on a Saturday or a Sunday, the sales guy is calling him and asking him to draft an agreement because he needs it on a Monday morning, which was never the case before, because 11 to 8 means 11 to 8, and then you're out, and you're not expected to then be on your job. I think this line is also getting blurred as a result of this change, which organizations need to manage, because this will again cause burnout. And I would just like to end uh, with a recent article that I read, where Satya Nadella said moving completely to a work from home situation is like moving from one dogma to another dogma. So it aptly puts this situation. I think it has to be a healthy mix of both. You need to right now give some space to your employees and plan long term how you want to manage this shifting trend. It has to be a mix.
Right. And I'm sure there's a lot of literature out there, and people have written reams and reams and reams of, I don't know, pages or whatever they write on the internet nowadays. But yeah, but the other thing is, there is a very underlying assumption that has been made by almost everyone that I read about or hear, is that everybody seems to be having a smartphone and everybody seems to be having a broadband connection. And having been a telecom regulator, I very precisely know that is not the case. It's not the case in Europe. It's not the case in the United States. It's not the case in Canada. It's not the case in Australia. And I've taken some of the leading world economies in the world. So how does that apply to India? What have you guys analyzed on this front?
Telecom, yes. After the arrival of Geo, there was a spurt in the number of people joining in the internet economy in our country. So that one shift has pushed it up. We're also seeing a lot of now companies building apps and solutions for the rural market. Companies like Khata Book, for instance, tremendous growth in the last 1 year, just raised $60 million round. So yes, big problem, bad connection, but big opportunity, because everything is bad, and that's where ecosystems and investments are going. I see investments are happening. I see telecom still extremely competitive, though yes, the last year or 2 years was tough for them. There were a lot of fines, if I remember. Vodafone and Idea struggling, but despite all of these things that are happening, I see personally telecom in India not stopping, because communication is going to be the fundamental driving force of this economy if we have to grow. And without
Well,
internet, we can't.
yeah, well, it's definitely not going to stop. And there is something, this is a trend that we are seeing. And I want the expert analysts to sort of throw your light on this. We had Facebook buying into Geo. So Geo is a telecom organization, basically. They call themselves playing in the digital space, but it's basically in the telecom, and they're tied up with an over-the-top OTT player, which is Facebook. Then we read about Google planning to buy a certain stake in Vodafone Idea, who's again an over-the-top player. And today it's come out that Amazon is willing to buy a stake in Bharti Airtel. So where does this, what is the analysis on this? What is analysts' views on this crazy phenomenon? And I have, from a regulator's point of view, I have a view on this. That's a different thing. But yeah, what do you think? Where is the business going?
So going by the understanding of what has just happened recently, all these companies investing into Reliance. So if I just take a step back and understand the digital play which is happening globally, so we see organizations like Alibaba, Amazon, those top big four tech firms. So technology has almost blurred the lines between sectors and industries. So, as said by many, the future firm will be a tech firm and there'll be no segregation. One day, a technologist team could make a what do you call a SaaS product. Next day, it could be an NGO software, something on those lines. Just they can jump across sectors and industries. So, because of this reason, companies like Amazon have had a super hold. They have gone $1 trillion in valuation. Then we have the likes of Google and Facebook behind them. So, like seen with any technology, the floor runners within any industry have a firm grasp on the industry for the coming 5-10 years, as they are the people with resources taking initiatives. So they enter every bit of it. So this is okay. Coming back to the Reliance part of it, India has still not seen such a player. Amazon and other big firms have entered within India, but due to the regulations, they have still been barred from really expanding across sectors within India. So Reliance and the regulation bit is going to stay in India. Looking back at the history, I'm pretty sure they will not allow upfront opening for these firms. So the best play from the perspective of those firms, investment firms, would be like from the likes of Facebook, accessing those billion customers, billion plus customers via Geo. And the Geo's play in here would be something like becoming an Amazon for India.
Yeah, but Amazon has shown a keen interest of picking up 5% share in Airtel.
Yes, probably so the fight is on the acquisition and everything, but the winner would be the one who has access to the multiple channels and access to the number of users via different platforms. So for Geo, so it already has like 700, 800 million users plus addition 1.5 billion Facebook users, which they now have access to. So how does like an Amazon entering India via Airtel route? So what access, what are the advantages, strategic advantages they get from such an what you call amalgamation? So it will probably depend on them. They all have big pockets for investments, I would say.
Yeah,
So it's just
Google is coming in on Vodafone.
Yes, I would actually like to add just one point here on all of these three firms going so bullish on India. It is clear the market that they're trying to tap. With Geo, there was a sudden spurt in growth in the number of internet users that came and used internet for the first time ever in India. So this trend is shifting. They want to capture this growing market. I also see, technology is blurring those lines, so it's going to flow between industries. There is going to be a lot of people coming together. So, the idea of competition as we see today is going to definitely change in the world of digital. And it should, because companies which are great leaders today, if you see in any industry, let's talk about, for instance, banking, a great example. You have companies like Bank of America, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs. Every year they are investing $10 billion in digital transformation. A lot of them are partnering with these technology companies. They are partnering with Amazon or Apple to launch their, credit cards, digital cards. So they realize they have control because there is a regulation protecting them. The day it goes away, this organization has the intellectual capital, the technological know-how to build and scale at a level that these guys can't do, because they have been doing just that. They have been building internet. They've been the pioneers of internet economy. billions of people on those platforms. From the perspective of Airtel, Geo, specifically Geo, I think this all of these deals, either signing up with Microsoft or Facebook, is like one step addition to this entire big strategy, corporate strategy to drive the digital transformation in India, really serve this new big market.
Okay, great. By this time, the audience would have understood what is Concis and what is an analysis and what is an analyst's work. Because you have got it on the actual thing through the questions and the answers. They have actually given you an analyst's perspective of the various things that are happening. Now, as I think it's time for Aditya to pick up the baton now. But there's one last thing I want to ask the two of you, which is when you look at your analysis and whatever is there, are you curating some things for startups and people who are about to start up an organization? Because the startup ecosystem, they are also in dire need of such curated information and analysis. And this startup, the people who are founding startups like you guys did, they perhaps don't even know that there is information out there. So what is your sort of focus on that?
I will just quickly take this day before you come in. And I just want to say the core purpose of Concis is to be that platform for this mass unserved market of startups.
Okay,
it's
great.
that we are trying to fulfill with all the curation that we're doing.
I'll just add on with an operational example just to keep it short. So one of the videos we have just completed is Chamath's take on how Facebook grew from 0 to 1 billion users. Chamath was member of the founding team. So what actually worked within the company and what is just like hearsay and just book material. So we have conversations like these, insights like these built into, and probably sometime down the line, we'll have a pack for startups as well. And of course, priced very affordably.
Thank you so much, Aditya.
Thank you.
So guys, it was a great discussion and we had 3 strategists and analysts discussing a lot of stuff. So Mr. Sen and Rohit and Dev, I think we're discussing a lot of stuff about how the industry is going to shape up in the future and how we are going to work, how we are going to live, and what has changed after COVID-19 and the cyclones. So guys, I'll come back to like a bit more easy questions because Mr. Sen has already asked the more insightful and the strategy-based ones. So Rohit, especially with Rohit, he's a CA turned business analyst and a financial analyst. And Mr. Sen is also a CMA, cost and management accountant, which he still is, but he has also kind of worked in a lot of strategy profiles and a lot of mentorship oriented and consultancy oriented profiles. Now, I want to ask Rohit, so when you were switching field from a very traditional career as a chartered accountant to a non-traditional career, because data storytelling, or so I like to describe it that way, that it is almost data storytelling. So you're using a lot of data, you're converting it into a very small.
I think Aditya might have gotten a phone call. I think he's running on mobile data.
Okay.
He's back.
I think he's back now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think repeat the last 15 seconds or 20 seconds.
You went wandering.
Sure. So my question was that, when Rohit shifted from a chartered accountant, which is a traditional career, to a data storyteller, which you guys are doing, and kind of, you're converting a lot of data into a story, a small one, where you are making it much more memorable, insightful, and actionable at the same time. So Rohit, what was the thought in your head? Because you were also jumping into this bandwagon of entrepreneurship, plus you were, jumping into this very new and hip career option. So what was the thought like? Did you think that you were taking a risk?
Oh, risk? No. I did not turn because as a CA, I was always an analyst. All of my jobs in all of the consulting firms was the role of a financial analyst, which involved looking at a lot of, tons and tons of financial data So I was part of the financial due diligence team at all of these big fours, and I used to work on private equity and M&A transactions. So my job was
So you were handling numbers for about 14, 15 hours a day.
yeah. So it was 14, 15 hours a day, 7 days a week.
I get that. 90-hour week would have been normal for you.
Absolutely. So in that time frame, what I learned was uh, it's it's extremely rigorous, that activity. You have to be always reviewing what you're doing. You have to be on your toes, because if you report anything wrong, it's going to be catastrophic, not just for your relationship with your client, which will of course go toss out of the window. It's also going to be very difficult for you to get more business, because what is a consulting firm selling? It is just intellectual capital. So if you're not supplying the right intellectual capital, it's going to be very difficult. Coming to Concise, no, the challenges were not with the operational elements of it, which is making these summaries. It is what we did, so we were able to apply our skill sets. But the challenge was to shift from the employee mindset to the entrepreneur mindset. That is the biggest shift that you have to take. That was the biggest challenge for us, which is why we've been doing this for almost 2 years now, and looked at it from multiple different ways, as we kept on understanding how really do you shift to the entrepreneurial mindset. What is it that you need to shift your focus on? Because there it's all about perfection, but in entrepreneurship it's about speed, not perfection. Perfection is a function of iteration, but at a consulting firm, when you're working as an analyst on that side of the table, it is about speed. There is a defined time frame, but your entire effort is not towards other areas like marketing or growing your brand or getting customers, talking to them, getting feedback. You already know what you're giving. The product is defined. You're just going in and executing it. So it's all about execution when it comes to management consulting as an analyst. But here, where my job as an analyst ends, that's where I have to don my entrepreneurial hat on and start thinking about my customers. How do I position this? How do I run a marketing campaign? So I've turned into a marketer now. I think like a marketer. I try to, come up with snazzy lines that I could use on my social media to promote what we're doing, and come up with different ways. Kind of when I look at websites like HubSpot or Trello, earlier they were just products for me that I was using, but now when I look at them, I analyze the entire thing. I analyze how they are marketing their brand. I look at how they're presenting this information, how they are building their landing pages. All of this was never even coming to me as a thought when I was an analyst, because that wasn't my job. My job was to make a great report, design it amazingly, make it crisp, get all the points, find all the risk factors for the decision maker to decide whether or not he should buy the company. So that's, from that perspective, there is commonalities as well as new things.
Great. I think your perspective changes a lot as an entrepreneur, and how you have defined that passionate perspective with which you use a product like HubSpot or Trello. The way you look at things, I think that is a great insight all of us can draw here, not just as entrepreneurs, but also as job professionals, as anybody in the sector, in any sector. In fact, this is a very common learning for everyone, to just learn from everything we are doing. Even if we are using a platform like Facebook, let's say, or LinkedIn, we can learn from there as well. Why not? Why just use it as a product? And that is what you can contribute to the company if you keep learning from different products that you use, how they market themselves, how they sell, how they create value, how they deliver value, etc. So also wanted to ask you, and since a lot of students watch this, young college students, school students, so is there any particular pathway to becoming an analyst, or do you suggest, taking up tasks like an analyst rather than doing some course? Or do you suggest a mix of both? If I were to become an analyst, let's say from 12th class onwards.
Okay. So the options would vary a lot. When we started, it was a different approach. How the industry has grown with a lot of what you call digital initiatives. So it has become quite easy now to what you call build your getting that knowledge base, having like startups like an academy and everyone trying to teach you. They are coding camps and everything available now. You can just learn from home. So the aspect of becoming an analyst can be approached by two ways. I would say one thing is like just develop that. Making it a habit, not working on those deliverables with that analytical mindset, but whatever you do, like you just said, ideally or Facebook example, whatever you put your mind into, just trying to be analytical as a thinker. And when you align it to a goal, then it becomes something like a product, a deliverable. Otherwise, just having that mindset, being very cautious about each and every moment would something, if you have that, then probably you are aligned for that already. But coming to the operational bit and what steps you can take, for a guy coming out of 12th, I would say it is becoming very easier to work as intern, pick up unpaid internships, work with 3, 4, 5 firms while you're finishing your college. And by the end of those 3 years, those 3, 4, 5 experiences would probably build you up like what stream do you particularly want to follow. And just that mind frame which you carry forward by working with startups and young companies is something which will automatically inbuild that analytical mind frame, I would say, because this is how we operate, and my experience has been. Over to you there.
So, yeah. So I think that's a really great insight for all of us, that we should learn more on the job rather than just thinking about a course. However, if I'm a class 12 student, you would want to recommend me?
I think even if you're in class 12th, which means you're just about to step into the real world, finally out of your cocoon. That's a great time to start experimenting with what you're doing. Maybe you can just take the first year trying to build up necessary technical base for doing something like this, which is where courses come in handy. E-learning is great. I just share my journey, how I became an analyst. I think that might give you some ideas. So I've always been very interested in corporates, kind of learning how these businesses work. My interest came because I used to read the Live Mint business paper every day, and every day when I started reading it from 17 till about 90, those 3 years, it built in a lot of perspective. There was a lot of things that I didn't understand, but I started getting some exposure to business terms, something like an EBITDA. For a long time, I didn't know what EBITDA was. When I was first introduced to these concepts. But the more I got into it, I understood what it was. Then I picked up a technical subject like CA, which is helping me understand it better. So supporting it with my technical education as well, the skill that I want to have. Then somewhere around 2021, my sister introduced me to Seeking Alpha, which is a place for contributors. If you want to write about companies from an investment perspective, you can you can do your complete analysis, financial modeling, and start writing reports around it. So I started doing some basic level analysis. I used to just download all the annual reports of companies, randomly companies that I like. So I looked at companies like Google. I looked at companies like, oil and gas companies like ExxonMobil. So all of those, just give me a sec, my charger.
There's a lesson in this. It's all about power. Whoever has the power is in charge.
Yeah. Crisis times, small ones.
Yeah.
Right.
You must
So just to continue with this conversation, Dev. So Rohit mentioned about CA, right? So CA is one technical course. Would you recommend something like a BBA or a Bachelor of Management Studies, or let's say a BCom also for becoming an analyst? Is it a good base?
So I think Rohit, you're back. You can just quickly summarize do you finish your point? Then probably I can take over this question.
So it's I used to just start preparing those models from scratch. Now I have to learn how to make a model. So I would buy a course from Udemy, how to make a financial model. right? I just spend some time Googling. I would apply it. It's about doing those things. And then there are just so many sources, as you said, should we do a course like BBA or MBA? Of course, technical knowledge will help. But, you've been a part of an incubator, which is in an MBA college. And you see the kind of graduates that are coming out of the institution who, despite all of that training, are not able to get the basics right. Why? Because there is lack of practical experience on their part. So I want to build in the extreme relevance of practical approach towards your work to learn it. There is no other way to do it.
Yes.
You can't learn it in any course in the world, no matter where you are, even Harvard University.
So Aditya, to answer your second question, if I got it right, what is the importance of those degrees or those MBA degrees in taking this journey forward, right? Okay, great. My answer to that would be, you really don't need that. There is a certain benefit which it provides. Otherwise, uh, probably I would say like 5 to 10 years back, that was a requirement, a must-have. Now it's no more a requirement. In this digital age, you can do 5 internships and you might be favored over a guy who is just out of a fresh MBA and probably 2 years younger to him. And he would have spent about 15-20 lakhs of his rupees. You could probably take those 5 experiences and run 2 failed experiments on entrepreneurship. That would give you much more knowledge, I would say, than that 2 year MBA. It has its importance, but the structure of education is more to do with like preparing employees and not right for the entrepreneurship journey. There are some good institutes which are coming up, but yeah. So even if you do not have access to such esteemed universities, or do not be disheartened, I would say just know what you have to do, find resources, do it, and keep trying, because that's all the resources available now, and there's no excuse for not doing what you have to do in today's world.
Yeah, I'll just add
Great.
something
So
on
guys,
this. Aditya, I'll
sure.
just add something to what both of them said, Rohit and Dev, which is way back, long time ago, like in the 80s. After I passed my intermediate, I mean, you have this as intermediate and final. So after passing the intermediate, I got picked up by the industry. So I joined General Electric as a trainee. And there was a stipulation that you have to pass your final within 3 years. If you don't pass your final within 3 years, you're out. So what happened was, we were studying at the same time. We were studying towards our final degree certification. At the same time, we were in a proper job. It was like a 9 to 5, maybe more than that. And we were doing all sorts of things. So what Rohit said and what Dev said, the combination of a practical experience, hands-on, and what you learn, and if you can then marry the two of them, and you get to do that actually as you go along, it happens automatically. Even if you don't like it, it happens.
Yes.
And when you do that, that's when you get your maximum learning. You learn how to write reports from what? From the boss telling you this is rubbish. That's where you learn how to write a report. It's not about getting a 90% or a 35% or whatever. Here, it's thrown on your face. They say, okay, rubbish, go rewrite. And then you know what actually reality is all about.
Absolutely true, sir. I just want to add, Aditya, because all the students are listening to this, and I don't want to put a negative connotation to this, but I've always been one of the last 3 in my class ever since I was 4-year-old. I've never been in the top 10 or top 15, even 50% of my class. It's always been bottom 3 or bottom 5 for me all throughout my life. So I can clearly say, it's about not your marks, but it's about your mindset and approach to what you're doing and how you do it.
Absolutely. I think Mr. Sain summed it up very well, what both of you said. And I would like to pick up from what Dave said, that guys, all the resources are available to you. So there's no excuse for not doing what you really want to do. So even if you're a 12th class student, whether you're a college student, you can just start learning on the job, and you can take up something like an internship. There are many companies, many organizations offering you that if you are, as they've said, if you are willing to go unpaid for a while and learn stuff. And as Mr. Sain said, if a report is thrown on your face after being called rubbish, I think that's where the real learning happens, because now you have to actually do something which applies to the industry rather than just being a project which is being marked.
Or you lose
So-
your salary at the end of the month.
Right, that's an even bigger stake to have.
Bigger
Yeah, so that goes high stake. So yeah, guys, I think it was a great learning experience, and what we take away from today's session is how important it is to learn on the job, to try things, take up things, explore, and as Mr. Sain says, wander around with an action-based approach. And I think it's a great job that both of you are doing, and
Yeah, it's a
I
great
hope
job.
we can get and I hope that we can, as an industry, get a lot of learning from Concise and their reports. Yeah, so over to Saman.
Great. So before we end, one quote did emerge out of today's session from Rohit. I'll read it out for everyone. Work has to be a healthy mix between an organization and an individual. Otherwise, you're just looking at a massive burnout. With that being said, thank you for all the audience members for watching. Mr. Sain and Aditya, thank you for your questions. And of course, most importantly, Rohit and Dev, thank you for coming. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you for having us, guys. It was a great
Thank you.
experience.
Yeah, thank you. So guys, take care, stay safe and wash your hands. Like and follow our Facebook page and turn on post notifications to get notified when we do go live. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch our live streams on entrepreneurship. And we'll see you tomorrow with another guest. Take care now. Bye bye. See you.